Hello again and welcome back to our course on PowerPoint 2019. In this section, I want to talk to you very quickly about saving a presentation because that is one thing that we haven't done yet. And the thing that you don't want to do is spend a lot of time working on a presentation, forget to save it, and then maybe something happens and you lose all of your hard work. So we want to make sure that we save our presentation at the beginning and then we regularly save it so that we don't lose any of our most recent changes. And I'm going to show you a couple of different ways and a couple of different saving locations. Now, before we get on to that, just following on from the previous section, I just want to show you a couple of little tips and tricks within these slides before we save. So essentially what I'm going to do is make a change to this presentation and then we're going to save it. Now, where we left off, we had these three slides that we've inserted with our different layouts. I just want to show you a really quick way of inserting a slide, but almost duplicating the slide layout. Now, as we've seen, if we want to insert another, for example, title and content slide, I could go up to New Slide, and I could select my title and content slide, which is perfectly fine. But I'm going to show you a different way of doing it. So I'm going to click on the Undo on my Quick Access toolbar. And what I'm going to do this time is that I know that this slide here, slide 3, is a title and content slide layout. And maybe the next slide is going to be reasonably similar to this one. What I could do if I wanted to is duplicate this slide. And the easiest way of doing that is just by pressing Control D on your keyboard, and it will essentially duplicate that slide and give you an exact copy for you to work on. So it's going to be exactly the same text. If you've got any images in there, those will be carried over as well. And it's also exactly the same slide layout. So I just wanted to mention that because that's personally something that I find myself doing all the time. I tend to duplicate if I'm going to be using the same slide layout. Another thing I wanted to quickly show you is now that I've inserted this duplicate copy, I actually don't really need this slide, so I'm going to delete it out of my presentation. And again, there's always a few different ways that you can do these things in Microsoft. I could right-click on the slide, and in that menu, I have a delete slide option. You'll also see just above, I have duplicate slides, so I could select that instead of doing Control D. Or alternatively, probably the easiest way is just to hit the delete key on your keyboard to get rid of that slide. Nice and simple and straightforward. So now let's look at saving this presentation. I'm going to go up to my File tab, which takes me into the Backstage area. And immediately you'll see in this list I have Save and I have Save As. So I'm going to select Save As. And this takes me to my different save locations. And it really is entirely up to you where you save your presentation to. Now, what I have up here is you can see I have the option of saving into OneDrive. And if you're not familiar with OneDrive, that is Microsoft's cloud storage. So if you have an Office 365 account, you definitely have access to OneDrive cloud storage. And this tends to be where I save all of my files. I save them up into the cloud so that I can access them wherever I am as long as I've got an internet connection. Alternatively, I've got a SharePoint site that I could save into, and I'm not going to go into that too much, but it is another place that I could save my file. And then underneath in this other locations area, I can select to save to this PC. So if you want to save it to a folder that you have on your PC, so maybe to the desktop or My Documents or something like that. I could choose to add a place, so a different network location if I wanted to. Or I can select Browse. If I'm not too sure, it will allow me to browse around. So let me click on Browse. And this should look fairly familiar to most of you. It pops up that File Explorer, and I can then decide on which location I want to save my file into. And I'm actually going to save into OneDrive. So I'm just going to navigate to the correct folder. And this looks good enough for me. I'm going to give my file a name. So I'm just going to call this My Presentation. And you can see the Save As type is defaulted to .pptx. And that is the default file extension for any file that you save into PowerPoint. Let's just have a quick look at what's in that drop down. So if I click on the arrow, you can see I have lots of different other file formats I could save in. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but some of these I might want to highlight would be if you're using a particularly old version of PowerPoint, you might want to save it as a 97 to 2003 presentation. Or if you're saving this as a template, so if you want to reuse it again, you might want to save it as a .potx file or a PowerPoint template. But I'm going to stick with the default, which is .pptx. And I'm going to click on Save. And what you'll see is that once you've saved your presentation, the name that you gave it will now appear in the top bar. So you can see at the top here it says My Presentation .pptx. I'm now fairly safe and fairly confident that I can work on this presentation, and as long as I save at regular intervals, then I know that I'm not going to lose my work if anything bad was to happen. So again, if you are working away and you want to quickly save to your file, you can just do the keyboard shortcut Control S to save, or alternatively, you can click on the Save icon, which you'll have there on your quick access toolbar. That is one of the default icons that is added onto there. And you can see there it also does show you that keyboard shortcut Control S. So that wraps up saving a presentation. Very straightforward, very simple. What we're going to do next is an exercise. So let's jump over there now so I can talk you through that.